one second, they're in the back.
You have another copy?
Give me one second, they're in the back on the table. I need to get this.
You gave me two. Oh no, it's two sheets. We can share. There it is. No, I sent you all an email and said it was being postponed.
What is being postponed?
The caucus presentation. Because Teresa has not finished hers, and I don't want to one-sided. I want it simultaneously presented.
Is it gonna go to the council at large or just?
Not sure at this point, but you will have an opportunity to ask questions and do all that sort of thing. That's not a problem.
I saw her response saying that she had put in over 100 hours of work on it.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. She's down to the minutest detail.
I'm sure with an auditor's mind, when you see that and then you see the data and the data cross-reference, that she really.
Yeah, she put a Good evening. The monthly meeting of the Public Safety Standing Committee is ready to begin. It is now 7:07 p.m. on Monday, November the 5th, 2018. Good evening to everyone. At this time, we'll have the roll call. Alderman Frederick Payon.
Here.
Alderwoman Shanika Henson.
Present.
Next item, number 3, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda should be made here. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda?
Madam Chairwoman, I have, and I have no problem with what's here. I would move that it be accepted.
Alderwoman Henson?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Business before the committee. Approval of the minutes. PSC 100118, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting. At this time, can I hear a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No one. I would like to, at this time, if my colleagues are so inclined, to take first on the agenda ID 282-18, presentation, military parade and game from the Honorable Mr. P.J. Hogan. We have a guest here, so oftentimes I like for the guest to go first.
No problem, Madam Chair.
No objection.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to wait, Madam Chair.
No, you're our guest. You're our guest, Mr. Hogan, so we bring you before the committee. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is P.J. Hogan. I assist the Military Bowl on a myriad of things. The reason I'm coming before you tonight, I want to thank the chair for allowing me to come and make a presentation about the Military Bowl. For those of you not familiar with it, the bowl games in general, it's a fascinating process how teams are selected for the bowl games and where these bowl games are held. The Military Bowl was played in Washington, D.C. 2008 through 2013. Then it was moved to Annapolis to the Navy Marine Corps Stadium. It's been there 2014 through 2017 and will be played there again this year. And this year's game, they got a really coveted spot, noon on New Year's Eve. That is there's a lot of jockeying and negotiating for different when the games will be played and who the teams will be. To have New Year's Eve for what is this is not the Rose Bowl, this.
It's our Rose Bowl.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it is our Rose Bowl. To be on at noon on New Year's Eve, I think is wonderful for a couple of reasons. It will be widely watched.
Excuse me, can you turn your mic on, please?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
All
Is that
right,
much
thank
bet-
you.
Thank you. It will be widely watched, and given the timing, people have off New Year's Eve often. They have off New Year's Day, so we expect more people to come to the game, stay for a couple days. Now, the Bowl Committee is about to enter negotiations with ESPN, the sponsor, Northrop Grumman, and the conferences for the bowl games for 2020 through 2026. And we don't want this bowl game to go somewhere else. We want to keep it in Annapolis. The parade and the bowl game have been continually sponsored by corporations, individuals, businesses, and government levels. The state of Maryland has provided $50,000 in cash each year that the bowl game has been here. The Anne Arundel County Economic Development Corporation has provided $20,000 in cash. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, $10,000. The city of Annapolis, since the games have been here, have waived a whole myriad of fees, which I believe it comes out to about $25,000 or $26,000, depending on the exact year. They've done that in the past. I understand that, and I apologize, I understand in the past the mayor has just waived those fees. I understand there's a new process where the city council has the right to and should adopt and consider all of these, the operations of waiving the fees. We're asking for that to continue. I read the city statute regarding that section, exemption of fees, 14.18.110, where it says the city council may exempt certain special events from fees by resolution. In doing so, shall consider the nature of the event, the nonprofit status, location, resources, and mission of the entity sponsoring the event, the extent of commercial activity such as sales of food, goods, services, product advertising, or promotion or other private sector participation in the event, and any other factors the city council may deem appropriate. I think I've given you a presentation at your desk, and I think throughout that presentation, I'm not going to obviously read to you, but I think we hit all of those points for your consideration. It is a big economic benefit to the state. It brings a lot of people to the city. They stay, they eat, they drink, they buy goods and services while they're here. The television crews that come with it are significant. And I highlighted two particular pages, page 5, which shows a breakdown of the economic impact on the city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County and the state over the last 3 years. Also on page 8, I give you a breakdown of the public support that is received by each of the bowl games and where we stack up in that public support. We're down towards the bottom. I understand that you have had many difficult decisions to make in this fiscal year. I can sympathize with you. I served on the State Senate Budget and Tax Committee for 13 years, so I know what it's like to raise taxes, to cut taxes, to fund programs, not to fund programs, and they're all difficult choices. And I'm sure you have 1,000 people come here and make similar arguments that I have, and the decision you have to make is not an easy one. I will personalize it for a second. I represented the northern half of Montgomery County for 13 years in the state Senate. So I spent a lot of time in Annapolis, but only basically January through the end of April, and then a day a week the rest of the year. So I had a certain view of Annapolis as a visitor. I moved here 2 years ago. I now live over on Brook Avenue in Murray Hill. I moved here because I love this town, and I can't get over how much I have learned about this city since living here. All the different things that go on the rest of outside of the legislature. And one of the things I love about this town is there's always things going on. It is amazing to me, for the size of this city, the size of the population, how much is going on here. And you know, the whole myriad of activities. There's just constant activity, and I think it's very beneficial for those of us who are residents. I view the Military Bowl as one of those special activities that happen in the city of Annapolis, and urge you to consider continuing your support in waiving the fees. I'm happy to answer any questions or get back to you with answers if I don't have them.
Well, Mr. Hogan, first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming here. For 2 reasons, basically, why I asked you to come. Number one, just to give the public another opportunity to hear about the Military Bowl and what it has provided to our city during the December months. The other thing is, with this being the Public Safety Committee, of course, this committee takes a look at police, fire, Office of Emergency Management, and they're intricately involved in the Military Bowl festivities because of the services that they provide to the city, as well as to the persons and the visitors and businesses that are here during that time period. So I think it's a great mix of having you here for the Public Safety Committee and also having our police, fire, and emergency management representative here. So at this time, I will open it up for any questions. Alderman Payon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hogan, I guess I don't understand why the Military Bowl itself is not paying actually it was over $30,000 last year that we waived. It was 33 or 34, I forget the exact number. You know, you have a director who makes quite a nice salary, and I'm sure there are other employees who are well paid also, and I don't suggest that their salaries be cut by any means, but I just kind of feel like it's not like you guys don't have the money to reimburse us for police and fire overtime and various and sundry other expenses that we have. I mean, we can certainly, well, I don't know if we can certainly, but we could certainly do everything we can to cut our costs, but I don't understand why we couldn't come to some reasonable agreement as to an amount over a period of 4 or 5 years at the Bowls here. And make no mistake, we love the Bowl being here. We want it here. But, you know, you're talking upwards of $150,000 over a period of time. We just upped the taxes. I didn't vote for it, but the mayor and my colleagues, the mayor suggested a 20% rise in property taxes. We settled for, what was it, 13 and a half, something like that?
I think it's 9 points.
No, it was 13 plus. And one of the main things that people talk about is, or ask about, is whether the Naval Academy pays its way. Do they pay for the overtime when they use a stadium for 5 home games a year, graduation, various and sundry other things they use it for? And by and large, I got to say they do. I mean, could be some quibble about whether they pay exactly what they ought to pay or not, but clearly they do bring business to the town, but that's a two-way street. This is a great place for people to come. I mean, what's the problem? Why should we waive the fees?
Okay.
I've really opened it up by asking you that question.
No, I appreciate the question.
I'm a trial lawyer, so I know how to do these things.
And you never ask a question without knowing the answer, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I'm going out on a limb on this one.
First of all, I mean, I saw someone quoted in an article a while back saying, Well, when it comes to the Military Bowl, they're for profit. They sell tickets. Yes, there are ticket sales to this game, but those don't cover. The bowl games are very expensive. I'll tell you who gets the most of the money are the teams, the schools that come. And that is all negotiated, between, like I said, ESPN, the bowl, and the conferences. There are huge expenses to it. It is very competitive about where these bowl games are played. And I understand your question. Well, wait a minute. You've got money, so why not just pay for those services? When they evaluate the support that they receive from all different levels, I mean, same thing, we could pay the state, we could pay the county, but they look at it, and I think the city in some ways has looked at it in the past, it's an investment. There's a return on investment that far outweighs the expense incurred.
I agree with that, but the problem we run into is that there is no dividend for the city government because we provide a lot of expenses to the businesses that benefit. In many cases, don't pay property taxes. The owners don't live here in the city. That's fine. I'm not criticizing that, but we provide services that we don't get paid for, and at least to some extent, even if they're not all covered, we do need to have. It seems like to me like we need to have at least something covered by this. I have a tough time telling my constituents that, hey, the Military Bowl, it causes traffic. I happen to represent the area where the stadium is, and I know you can't get in and out a lot, and traffic's terrible if you don't go to the game, but they're paying their own way. Well, I can't really say that. I don't know. I'm not trying to be difficult. Like I said, make no mistake. We want the Military Bowl here, but it just seems it just doesn't seem right. That's all. I mean, it's not like we're demanding $500,000 or something like that. $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. Maybe not a drop in the bucket, but it's not a gigantic amount to ask to pay. But you've answered my question as best you can.
Okay.
I'm just spouting off. Sorry.
Understand.
Alderwoman
Thank you.
Hanson.
Alderman Payon, I just want to add to his comments there, Mr. Hogan. The gentlemen sitting behind you were all before us when it was budget season, and we asked all of them to search very hard into each of their budgets for police and fire and to let us know where we could find cost savings as the city, because we knew that we were going to have to pass those costs on to the taxpayers. And each of the taxpayers made it very clear to us that they wanted us to make sure we maximized revenue to the city so that we didn't have to pass on to the taxpayers all of the extra expenses of conducting business as the city. And each of them did go into their police and fire budgets and look for ways to make sure that we could find efficiencies. So when we have opportunities to maximize revenue and we waive fees, it understandably is a very big sting to the people who are doing more with less. So we take it very seriously when we have opportunities to have extra revenue and we forego those opportunities. I understand that some of these agreements were made before I was sitting in this seat and before my colleagues who were in the seat had the opportunity to understand what agreements were being made, because they were being made without the benefit of certain measures of transparency. So it is not that we don't want to fully support the efforts there or to have those events available to everyone that lives in Annapolis, because we live here too and we like to enjoy those programs as well. But we do take a very hard look at making sure that the programs that are here are fully supportive of the city. When we got the last ability to kind of take a look at the numbers and the wrap up, the Naval Academy Athletic Association, it was about $98,000 over the budget of what we had received versus what it was costing to the city in the deal that we had with them. So that's a large overspend, and we don't allow any of our departments to spend $98,000 over budget. So to have a program that is operating in the city, that we're waiving fees to the tune of $98,000 over budget, it's a little bit tough for us to swallow. So we hope that we can find some way to kind of offset that. If there are ways that the Military Bowl can partner with some of our community projects, if there are ways to maybe partner with agencies such as Boys and Girls Club, anything else that Military Bowl can do to really incorporate other areas of Annapolis in the community, it certainly would help to make that feel a little bit better, but those are tough numbers. And so I don't want it to come across as if we're not being supportive of it, but we do have to make sure that we are being fair on all ends of that. I do realize that you did reach out to me back in September for an opportunity to speak about this, and my apologies that I didn't make myself available, but thank you to the chair for having you come here today and present on the Military Bowl, and I know that we will carry that information and share it with our colleagues, because I know that they want to know the information that you've given us here, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Any
Thank you.
other questions?
Didn't you represent Frederick County also, or is that another Hogan?
Oh, yeah, that is Patrick
Hogan.
Hogan. He's the governor's younger brother.
Okay.
He actually interned for me his senior year at University of Maryland College Park, and then subsequently represented Frederick County. So we had a Patrick Hogan in the House and a Patrick Hogan in the Senate, but we're no relation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
so
coming
much,
down.
Mr. Hogan. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is item number PSC 100118, ID 29518, Annapolis Fire Department presentation, including recognition of Deputy Fire Chief Kevin J. Simmons' recent appointment to the Maryland State Fire Prevention Commission. Fire Department, please come forward. Good evening.
Let's go give you a little update. Quick update on a couple issues, and I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Simmons. Just so the committee is aware, we have completed our winter weather preparations in the Annapolis Fire Department. So all the snow chains have been checked, snow plows are ready, and we're ready for the snow. Bring it on. So, one of our goals this year was to have body armor for our personnel, and through some grant funding from the state and from some help from our friends in the Annapolis Police Department, we have taken delivery of 58 body armor gear, and we should have them issued in early December to our personnel, so they'll be carried on the apparatus. As we do every year, around this time of year, we started working on our 2019 goals for next year. Every year we do a list of goals, and at the end of the year I give a status of how we did one of those goals, and we issue new ones in January. So we started on the 2019 goals, and one of the goals will be our pop-up camp for for next year.
Really?
Yes, for next summer. So it's actually the second one on the list this year. Update on the capital improvement projects. I can tell you for sure that the roof at the Taylor Avenue Fire Station is still leaking today, without a doubt. The roof on the Taylor Avenue Fire Station is still leaking.
I have not received an update recently.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the status of that project is. I have no movement on it since. I understand they got the bids back, and one of the bids was extremely low, and there was some concerns about the low bid and how this guy could do the work so cheap. They were trying to figure that out. The Eastport Fire Station renovation project is still out on bid, and we still have the HVAC and the mold issue at the Taylor Avenue Fire Station as well. That's still trying to be worked out. So, and last but not least, we have a partnership with Grow Annapolis at the Eastport Fire Station. They have that little lot alongside of the fire station. They have a community garden in there.
Where is it again?
at the Eastport Fire Station.
Okay.
So it used to be at the old rec center down here, downtown. And when that was sold, they had moved someplace, so they moved, we made a deal and they moved next to the firehouse in the vacant lot that we had. So they have a lot of gardens and all in there for the community. So this Saturday at 3 p.m., they're having a dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony at the Eastport Fire Station. So if you're free, you want to attend,
Send me an email, please.
okay, I'll do that. And that's all I have.
Good
Okay.
evening.
Thank you. Oh, any questions? Alderman Payon?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Alderwoman Henson? Okay. All right, yes.
Good evening.
Thank you so much, Chief and Deputy Simmons.
Deputy Fire Chief Kevin Simmons, the Director of Emergency Management, and I'm here with Nicole Queen. And Nicole's going to give you an update on our warming relief, which is the Stanton Center. We just closed down our cooling relief, which is the Pitt Moyer Center. She's going to give an update on that as well. Nicole provides administrative oversight of both of those programs, and she'll give you an update at this point.
Hello, everybody. So
Thank you.
a little bit of information about the cooling center. We were open for 3 months. We did July through September. We opened up 14 times throughout those 3 months, and we only had one patron come in and utilize the cooling center, and they were actually not an Annapolis resident, so that says a lot. As far as our warming center, we're gearing up. Snow can be expected anytime. We bypassed fall, I like to think, because the weather has been extremely up and down, hot and cold. We have met with We Care and Friends at the Stanton Center. We met with the Annapolis Police Department, and we met with our workers who work with We Care and Friends. We did a slight overview of what to expect for the upcoming season, to make sure nothing has changed, so we're still going in the same direction of what we were doing for the 16-17 year. As of right now, we're just waiting for our moment to open, but we are completely ready. We have the Anne Arundel County Food Bank on standby to provide food. They were able to provide food last season. They donated 500 pounds of food, actually, so we have them on standby, and we are ready to tackle the winter season.
Fine. You're prepared.
Very prepared.
All right. Alderman Payon, any questions?
I have to tell you, Madam Chair, this young lady moves very quickly. I was getting out of my car when she was coming up the steps of the garage, and I thought I was going to see if she needed to get in the back door, and by the time I got even halfway to the door, she was all the way around the corner coming in. She couldn't wait to get inside.
Well, good.
Oh, well. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Chief, she's very enthusiastic. You should note that.
I am.
Thank you. Alderwoman Henson.
Are there any, I know we have our process coming up to submit for capital improvements. Are there any thoughts on how the Stanton Community Center could have capital improvements? Any features that may make our warming relief program better? I don't know if Stanton Community Center is slated for any capital improvements in the future. I know, just being a person who goes in there for different events, that I see things about it that could be improved. I don't know where Public Works has it in the rotation, but have you all been asked to give any input, or do you have any thought on input on how we could improve it?
So at this time, I don't see anything that that involves the warming program where we can make any improvements. Every once in a while, we have some issues with the heat itself, and then we'll come there in the morning. We actually physically go there and pick up the roster at 7 o'clock in the morning and kind of lay our eyes on the folks that are coming through. And sometimes we get complaints that it's too cold in there, and at times it is. So that's heating issues, and usually when we bring it to Public Works' attention, they're right on top of it, given the gravity of what we're dealing with, and they solved the issue.
Are there adequate bathroom facilities? Are there places for people to take a shower if they want to shower before they go? I know that we now have Workforce and Development is occupying some space there. Is there enough space for all the different programs to coexist? I know Stanton kind of has multi-purposes.
Now, showers would be nice. Basically, they have 2 bathrooms on the first floor, a men's and a woman's bathroom, and folks kind of wash up in there and start their day. But they don't have a place where they can go, like Pitt Moria, where they can actually take a shower before they leave for the day. They all have to be out by 7 o'clock in the morning, unless it's definitely cold outside, and then we allow them to stay over.
Thank you.
Just to give you an idea of how many folks we served, we opened up 56 times the last winter season with 855 referrals.
Is that an unusually high number? As I recall, it was cold through about the 20th of January last year, very cold. But then it kind of warmed up after that.
No, we kind of went all the way till March, and I think that's the highest number.
Okay.
What I can remember is the 600s before, but this was kind of a challenge. And then we received folks coming from other parts of the county as well at some point.
And Queen Anne's County, as I recall.
You had to bring that up, right?
Is this strictly bare bones, strictly bed and warmth, or do we give coffee, any food, breakfast, anything like that?
So it's actually getting to be a little bit more of a sophisticated operation than it was when it started. They came in, we have 2 very reliable attendants. They do a bag search for any type of contraband or anything, alcohol, etc. And then they come in, they get checked in, and then they get a dinner. They actually make a dinner, whether it's turkey soup or steaks. You get a lot of good stuff from the food bank. So at times they better not do. But and then it's lights out at midnight, and in the morning they get a bag of something to leave with, a coffee and etc. They have cots. We have about 50 cots. 50 cots, blankets, pillows. Everybody gets a sack or a plastic bag. They put their pillow and their blankets in that, and that's put away, has their name on it. When they come back the next time, they go and get their stuff and put on their cot. So it's pretty good operation.
Okay.
And we turn nobody away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the dais? At this time, we'd like to recognize Deputy Chief Kevin J. Simmons, recent appointment to the Maryland State Fire Prevention Commission. Congratulations, Deputy Chief. Can you give us some kind of overview what this position involves?
I'm still learning it myself. The Fire Prevention Commission consists of 9 members appointed to a maximum of 2 5-year terms. The commission is empowered to hear appeals filed by those who are aggrieved by an order or decision by the state fire marshal or their designee in the course of enforcing the state fire code. I had my first hearing in October. They develop, amend, or repeal regulations for the safeguarding of property and life from the hazards of fire and explosions. The commission can make recommendations about daily operations of the Office of the State Fire Marshal to include their budget and their personnel matters. They provide an annual report on the commission's activities. They promote seminars, conferences, and programs on fire prevention, life safety measures, changes in the fire prevention code, and improved fire safety goals. That's a little synopsis of what they did.
How long is this appointment?
What I did not know until I brought this up to my boss actually served as a commissioner at one point.
All right,
as
thank
well.
you. Wonderful.
So,
How long have you been serving, Chief?
I was appointed under Governor Valley, he was governor. I served for 3 years.
Okay, all right. It's good to have folks from our city to serve. And the appointment is how long?
5 years.
Okay. And between the two of you, tell us the indirect or direct impact that it has on the city of Annapolis, by having this appointment.
I think the first thing it does is it gets our name out there. This is a good fire department, so it gives us some exposure. Secondly, a lot of you have impact on fire codes in the state of Maryland. So you can look at the fire code, how it impacts the city of Annapolis, and have influence on how that code can be changed or added to or modified to help the city in this goal of reducing fire.
Okay. All right. Well, whatever benefits it brings to the city, we certainly welcome that. All right. Any questions, Alderman Payon?
Did Senator Hogan vote for you back then?
All right, wonderful, wonderful. We're proud.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Henson. All right. Thank you all so much for your
Thank you.
presentation, and we look forward to a wonderful winter, wonderfully prepared winter. All right. Thank you so much. Deputy Chief O'Malley, always a pleasure. Next on the agenda is ID 29618, Annapolis Police Department presentation. Chief Baker, Lieutenant Kraus. Good evening.
Good evening. What would you like to talk about? Nothing's been happening. It's been,
Whatever you'd like to bring before us that we have not heard, or even if we've heard it, we'll hear it again.
all right. So let's start off with some crime numbers. And this is about a week old. For year-to-date, comparing this year versus last year, and keep in mind that in 2017, we had the second lowest crime numbers since 1975. So we're
Which year? Last year?
2017 was the second lowest crime number since 1975. This year, we are 15% down in violence as compared to last year. We are 8% down in total property crime and 9% down in total crime, total Part 1 crime. And Part 1 crime is those crimes that are reported to the FBI through uniform crime reports. So when you're comparing yourself against the second lowest year in history of Annapolis Police Department, well, since 1975, we're doing really good things. We did have some issues in the last week. We had a homicide in Bay Ridge Gardens, and we had a non-fatal shooting on Halloween on Newtown Drive. So those are being investigated, and we're working with the community. I'd like to thank Alderwoman Henson and Chair Alderwoman Pindell Charles for coming out on Thursday and organizing that meeting at Bay Ridge Gardens. I think that there was a lot of positive movement there to see the community come out and be engaged and want more information. I really look forward to bringing, I just broke it to Lieutenant Kraus about a half an hour ago about what's going to happen in Bay Ridge Gardens and working together. And so we'd like to I know the meeting is scheduled for December the 6th. We'd like to sit down before that so we can talk about expectations, who's going to run it. I think we both have the same idea. But we'd like to sit down before then and just have a general discussion on where that's going to go. Okay? Move from that to some personnel issues. So we have 124 sworn positions. We are at 118. That's not the problem. The problem comes in with we have 19 soft vacancies. And when I say 19 what?
Soft vacancies.
Soft vacancies. And when I'm talking soft vacancies, so everybody understands, it's people who are on administrative leave, people who are on military leave, people who are in field training, people who are in Baltimore County Police Academy. So we're actually working with 99 people. And it's been a long time since we've worked with such a few number. Generally, over the last 5 or 6 years, it's been about 10 people. Now we're almost double that, and that's a little concerning. We are managing. I mean, you can look at the numbers, but you know, one bad weekend and those numbers go by the wayside. So we're working hard on recruiting. We're working, trying to do some different things. It won't be too long before you see a banner go up on our fence that says, "Serve your community." Join the Annapolis Police Department with our core values and telephone numbers. We're also talking about expanding our reach when we do on-campus recruiting. I met with a lieutenant from Ocean City I was talking about another program, and they said it's very fertile recruiting grounds in western Pennsylvania, New Jersey, where Lieutenant Krause is from, and further up north, Connecticut, New York. It's very tough to get hired as a police officer in those communities. So that's kind of what we're focused on.
Why?
Why?
Is it tough to get hired as a police officer in western Pennsylvania and New Jersey?
Maybe Lieutenant Krause could answer that better than me.
Basically, it's because of the number of applicants up there. So, for example, now this is going back 22 years ago, but when I originally started out trying to get hired, a lot of times you'd have 1,000 people or plus 1,000 trying to apply for 1 or 2 positions. And that was the biggest issues that we saw up there. I know they're still having a lot of issues up there like that, so they'll have 300, 400, 500 people show up for 1 or 2 positions. So the jobs just aren't available up there. And unless you want to work in New York City, which most people don't really want to work in New York City, they'd rather work in smaller towns or smaller communities up there, that's when they start branching out.
Is it that they have fewer officer positions, or is it that they have more people interested in being officers?
No, they have a lot more people that want to be officers up there, but I think a lot of it comes to who you know up there also. To say it like non-politically, I guess, it's very political up there, and you have to know someone basically to get hired up there. That's how it works out. And a lot of times they'll actually even charge you to apply. So say you want to apply, they'll charge you $50 to come and apply. And then if you have 1,000 people, it's a lot of money. And then they don't even hire you, they hire one person who might be a relative of another officer or something along those lines.
Are they doing anything to promote interest in being a police officer that we can duplicate here?
To be honest with you, the biggest thing up there is pay. The town that I'm from, which is a small town called Howe Township, they start at $80,000. That's their starting salary, and that's what the majority of salaries are in New Jersey.
Where did you say?
Exactly. So, no, that's now. That's now. So a lot of the police departments up there are paying between $75,000 and $80,000 just to start. So that's why a lot of people, they don't want to come south, or they don't want to go other places. They want to stay there.
So is it that they're attracted to that salary and a position that will give them, are there other, is that the salary for jobs in that area in general, or is it that being an officer?
For the most part, I mean, the cost of living up there is definitely more expensive. Taxes are very high in New Jersey.
So it averages out?
It averages out a little bit, but still, you're still making out probably 10 to 15,000 more salary base wise than you would down here when you average out the cost of living.
What would make it attractive? What makes us think that we can attract them to come here then to be an officer?
Basically, I think it comes down to the point that if they really want to be the police officer, they'll go wherever they need to go. That's what I did.
Is it gonna, would it be transient here? Would they be using us just for the experience and then go back up there to make 80,000?
I mean, I could tell you this, that I mean, I've been here for 22 years. There are a number of officers that are on the police department that are from New Jersey and Pennsylvania that have been here for 15 plus years.
That's always the risk. I mean, we're processing somebody who just applied from Durham, North Carolina, and the reason why they're applying to us is they want to move closer to where their family is. So that's always the risk. Hopefully that the incentive is to come and work in our community, good pay, good benefits, now with the take-home car. I think that, you know, it can be attractive and it can be a place where people want to stay and raise their families. To travel to New Jersey, New York, it's not that hard to do.
Right. Well, my family still lives in New Jersey, so I'm just there this past weekend, 2.5 hours.
I know that we have a ROTC program in our high school, but if there was any way we could start I know we do we have DARE, and then what's the other program that we have in the elementary school?
Character Counts.
Character Counts. I know that we have DARE and Character Counts, but if there was any way we could start to build interest at younger levels and then build that interest steadily over time so that we were building interest in being a police officer so that kids coming out of high school, it sounds like in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they have kind of promoted that as a profession that people want to have. And for some reason around here, I don't know if it's a regional thing, we haven't, you know, somewhere along the way from kids being in Halloween costumes as police officers when they are 3 and 4. You don't see them doing that when they are, you know, 13 and 14. I don't know where the disconnect happens, but we have to find a way to keep that steam going all the way through to adults.
So we have an Annapolis Kids Club. I don't know if you're aware of that. And the idea is once a month they come to the police department, they learn about police activities, and the other month we do a social thing. I think they just went to a field hockey game.
That's correct. We took
Last
17
week
girls.
or last month. So we have that going. So we have Character Counts, we have DARE. Officers are mandated to spend time in schools. And then we have these other programs. We have the camps and explorers and everything else that we're doing. We started movie nights. I can't, you know, when spring hits, I can't imagine how many movie nights we're going to be doing in the community. So there's a continued outreach to get to the younger kids and make them aware of what it's like to be a police officer, and that we're just kind of normal people and we have a job to do, and, you know, it's a good profession.
And
Yeah, I see the officers more in the community. I absolutely do. So I think that, you know, I see the effort that's there, and I think we just have to keep doing it and
Right.
keep at it.
Right.
Right, and we're also at the Boys and Girls Club on Monday nights, so we're out there mentoring about 21 kids for that, and we spend about an hour with them, and we play sports with them, and we just kind of talk to them and see how their days are going, and just kind of talk to them. We also have an Explorer program that starts 14 to 20, and we're getting kids from Annapolis High School and other schools around the area to come participate in that. We have about 6 active members right now, and we're always actively looking for more people to join that. And we also have our cadet program, which currently we have 4 cadets in. 2 are going to Anne Arundel Community College. 1 is going to, I believe, Chesapeake, and then 1's going to University of Maryland. So they're also possibly in the pipeline.
Is the cadet program a volunteer program?
It is a paid program.
It's a paid program.
Okay,
And we're looking to expand it.
thank you.
Yep. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Payon, do you have any questions at this point?
No questions,
All
Madam
right.
Chair.
And please continue. Everything's sounding and looking real good.
We're trying. Just to catch up on some other things, Halloween, the week of Halloween, we did 4 trunk or treats: Monarch Academy, United Methodist Church, Stanton Center, and John Wesley AME Church. We've had several meetings to establish a police foundation, and that's to fund our camps and some training. As you may know, our training budget is $45,000, and for 124 officers, that's not a sufficient amount. The least amount, you don't want your police department to have the smallest budget per capita, which I think we do, for training, because we're going to cost you the most money when something happens. So the idea of establishing the foundation was, they asked me for 2 goals, and one is we're kind of following the Alexandria Police Department Foundation, and we're calling it Cops and Kids. And we're also asking for help establishing a training fund to get officers trained, whether it's train the trainer and bring it back or send people to training. Right now, we've identified 2 people, Pete Grimm and Jeremy Browning, have really stepped up and taken the lead in establishing or working towards establishing the police foundation. The next step is to get the bylaws written. They've already talked to the Anne Arundel County Community Foundation.
Okay.
And so once they get the bylaws started and get a board of directors set up, they believe that they could start accepting donations for the Annapolis Police Foundation and put it through the county community foundation. So we're not that far away.
And that's a 5%, I think, administrative fee, which is well
They're trying to
worth
work
it.
that out, yeah, they're trying to work that out.
Which is still well
Right.
worth it.
Right, it's more than we had yesterday,
Mhm.
so.
Okay.
That's basically all I have,
Okay.
I think.
All right. Anything to add, Lieutenant Krause?
No, man, we're just out in the community like you've seen us, and we'll be scheduling our camps coming up here in the next couple of
Right.
weeks.
We
and,
had our first planning meeting on Thursday, which went extremely well. We've got the support of our city manager, so we're talking about what we're gonna do next year. We're starting way ahead of time. So, it went very well, and we had a 2-hour meeting, so it was a lot of robust discussion about, what we're gonna do for One Annapolis Safe Summer 2019, covering the waterfront. So,
There
thank
you
you
go.
so much. Alderman Payon,
Yes, ma'am.
any questions?
None.
All right. Alderwoman Henson, anything to add or comment upon? Absolutely.
I just had a couple of questions. When I was in the meeting in Bay Ridge, the residents had a few issues, and I just wanted to see if we had any traction on them. One of them was they wanted to see if we could have coordinated responses. They mentioned that when it was the homicide, they would have liked to have seen crisis response come to the scene as well as the officers and the investigators. Have we taken any steps to start having a coordinated response when something like that happens?
We are working on putting a protocol in place for all homicides and shootings, and that would include notifying mobile crisis. Lieutenant Thomas was out there, and he was gracious enough to say, just call me on my cell phone and I'll respond. So we're going to work that in, and also we're going to figure out a way to get the schools notified, so when they open in the morning that they already have the information for a
When-
handle with care.
Yes.
Once you have that together, could you let me know that you have that? I'd love to share that information
Absolutely.
with the residents so that
Absolutely.
they know that that coming out to raise your concerns did result in the police department hearing your concerns, and now this is the protocol because you guys came out and let them know what you need. We can't respond to your concerns if you don't let us know what they are. So
Sure.
I think that'll be powerful for them to know
Okay.
that that's in action. Also, they raised an issue about when they call, and they raised a concern on the anonymous tip line about, and I think it maybe speaks to your concern about a training budget, to make sure that when they call and they say something anonymously, that the person who handles and receives the anonymous tip keeps that anonymous information, that they know how to protect and preserve that confidentiality.
There's a training issue there, there's a customer service issue there that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
But-
Is there something in the pipeline to try to address that? Is that more of a long-term?
The meeting was Thursday.
Oh, correct. Go ahead.
But I will get on it this week
Okay.
and make sure that we talk with the Director of Communications and try and get all this worked out.
I will continue to ask that, just to make sure I am
I will
reporting
let
back
you
to
know.
them with regular updates.
Yep.
And then also, when it was budget season, we were looking at what positions were good to kind of keep on the plate, what positions we could kind of take off of the plate. We wound up going a whole different route, just looking at attrition instead of going position by position. But one of the positions, you stated that we kind of needed to keep that one around if we wanted to be able to work with the grants. And I think that the name of that grant has changed altogether. I don't know if that grant is still on the table. And then the specific name of the grant, I don't,
So it was the Safe Streets Grant.
yes.
And it's been moved to MCIN, which is a grant targeting gangs. Although the name of the grant has changed, the position responsibilities has not changed.
So is that position, is it currently filled?
I'm trying to think. Actually, I was thinking it was Patty's job, but it's not. No, it's not filled.
Okay.
We have 2 positions right now, that being one, and an IT specialist being the other, that need to be filled. I can tell you that we are August, September, October, 3 months into the budget year, and my guess is that we've already met our attrition rate. I mean, because you're talking 5, 6 vacancies for the most part of 3 months, plus we have people on military leave that we haven't paid for the last 3 months. So we're getting pretty close to already meeting that attrition. My guess is that we will exceed that number unless something unusual happens.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just be clear, we still have the MOU with crisis response, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
None.
All right. Okay. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, legislation before the committee, 04118, emergency procurement for the purpose of authorizing the appropriation of funds for an emergency procurement and for establishing a procedure for the procurement of goods and services during an emergency. Okay. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the attachments, the legislation itself, as well as the staff report and the financial impact? Absolutely.
Is it open for discussion, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
It's my understanding that the city does not have a procurement policy at this time. The staff report states that it still would have to apply, comply with procurement laws, that we don't have that. We have a purchasing department, and our purchasing department has internal policies, but we don't have a procurement policy. So I don't know, just for the good of the order, what impact that would have.
I don't know, but what I can say is, there was a discussion that we had at one of the trainings recently. Is that correct, Deputy Chief? You can come forward, please. And I believe Alderwoman Tierney had brought up the fact of the matter that if we do have an emergency and we do need to procure some services or goods, there was nothing in place, and that kind of holds up what we need to do as a city for our residents and our visitors and our businesses. Is that correct? Can you shed some additional light on that, Deputy Chief?
Yes, I can't talk particularly about the procurement process, but we did have a training, and as a result of that exercise, one of the things is that we had to buy something for the city in an emergency situation where we had to get it quick, fast, and in a hurry. And because of the existing procurement rules, we couldn't do that. So that prompted, I think, the Director of Finance and the City Manager to kind of look at the procurement process in emergency situations only. And probably the best example I can give is that when we had Snowmageddon back in 10, I think it was Baltimore City, they needed to, they couldn't find a place to dump snow. So they had to melt it. And so they bought this, they wanted to use this big contraption from out of Canada. It cost $300 an hour, I think it was. And you dump snow into it, it melts it and turns it into water. So if we were in a situation like this where we couldn't dump snow in the Eagle Alley or Truxton Park, and we had to melt it, and we needed a contraption like this, and we had to get it fast, And if we went through the normal procurement process, it would delay it. I think this is a perfect example where this emergency process would expedite a tool, an apparatus, or anything that we would need in an emergency situation.
Thank you. Questions?
It sounds fair and reasonable and necessary. Who is our city procurement officer? That's a title I'm familiar with.
Mr. Bryan?
Brian Snyder, I
He's a
believe.
purchasing director that if I can just have a second to
Certainly.
make sure I understand who I am referring to, because I thought, who is that?
Chief, is there any dollar limit to this?
25,000.
Not
I'm
that
not
I
seeing
know of.
any.
Not that I know of.
In the code, they said in section 22030, it says the director of finance shall be responsible to the mayor for the execution and the purchasing and procurement. And then it says the director of finance shall appoint a purchasing agent and shall manage all phases of the purchasing and procurement process. So here we reference a city procurement officer. So I'm wondering if our city procurement officer that we're referencing here is the purchasing director that's referenced under the purchasing and procurement part of the code.
That's the only person I know of ever served in that position.
Okay. That's his title is procurement? Okay, so when it has the finance director, okay. Okay.
Question?
No.
Query?
The pieces of the puzzle aren't fitting together.
Okay, explain some more.
The appropriation process and the spending, your finance director then has to sign off on everything that is then expended. And I don't know that this, with the emergency procurement, has the finance director having the ability to do that or waiving the finance director's portion of that process. But I guess once it gets to the full council, I'd have the opportunity to ask those questions of the finance director and the city manager to make sure that if I'm overlooking that in some way, or if later on in the code it goes through those steps, that it does that, and that if this portion of the code where the purchasing and procurement that's in the code that has that particular position referenced in the finance director overseeing that, not fitting together with this, if I would ask them those questions at that time.
Well, I don't see any reason why, if you want to have it postponed to the next Public Safety Committee meeting and bring in our finance director as well as our procurement director.
Well, I
We
think
can
the city
certainly do that.
manager too.
And the city manager as well.
And unfortunately, she just left.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's 7 o'clock.
I would move to continue the vote on this.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I know enough. There's some,
Holes.
I mean, there's some holes a mile
Okay.
wide in this thing, and, I mean, they could write $1 million check, and by the time could put a stop to it, the money's gone. We're paying for lawyers, they're paying, I mean, I foresee a potential for a nightmare.
Okay.
Now, I think everybody would act in good faith, I have little doubt about that, but as an attorney, I've got to think of a worst-case scenario. There's no limit on it, there's no timetable, I mean, sometimes you can't put a timetable on a potential emergency. I know that, but I just think it needs to be tightened up a little bit.
All right. Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Do I-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We will have this continued to our December Public Safety Committee meeting, where we will have our purchasing director, our finance director, as well as our city manager invited. City council associate? Fine? Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Thank
Did,
you.
police want to weigh in on this at any way? Okay, I didn't know if you had anything you want to say since you're still here. Okay, all right. The next item on the agenda is the adjournment.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay?
Can stay here.
Passed. And it is 8:10 PM. I mean, excuse me, 7:10 PM. Looking at the clock and it has not been changed. 7:10 PM. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.